here. My name is Michael Shuman, and I want to thank Amoeba for sponsoring this gathering. We're doing this gathering every month in order to spread and strengthen local business alliances and highlight one network and the top innovations of that network. For those of you who don't know me, my nickname is Moose, and one of my inspirations was Bullwinkle J. Moose, also Mr. Know-It-All. He is the reason why I call this Moose's Corner. Today, the corner is going to focus on the Louisville Independent Business Alliance, LIBA, which has been around since 2008 and is one of the few networks in Appalachia. So the format today, we will spend about 20 minutes allowing our guest, Jennifer Rubenstein, to present, and then we'll just have the discussion, and if our numbers remain modest as they are now, we'll just unmute yourself and ask away, and when you run out of questions, I have a bunch of questions to ask myself. And at the last 5 minutes of our hour, if folks have other announcements or things they want to share, the floor is completely open and we welcome your thoughts and participation in that. So a few words about our guest today, Jennifer Rubenstein. She has been leading.
Actually, I'll just jump in.
I know. Oh, see, this is the problem when you know, your German gets really rusty.
There you go.
So she has been leading the organization since 2011 and has successfully grown the organization to 900 business members. Among the things for which LIBA is really well known for are Keep Louisville Weird and its annual buy local fairs. Jennifer is a native of Louisville, went to University of Louisville to study marketing, and remains in Louisville with her husband, as she says, kiddo and 2 dogs. And Jennifer, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Michael. And yes, props to Michael, author of many books and whose newsletters I receive, and also to Jen Risley, who I've known for many moons. First as the leader of her local chapter, her local buy local group, and now as the administrator of Amoeba. So, and I see Lauren has joined as well. That's another one of my board members. So y'all get to hear me talk, and y'all can also help me answer questions. So, all right. So I will just jump in here. LIBA, as we affectionately call ourselves, you can say LIBA or LIBA or lots of different things, but you know, mostly we say LIBA. Those are my 2 beagles barking in the background. We started around 2004 when John Timmons, owner of a music store, went to Austin, Texas for a conference, and saw the initiatives there. The Keep Austin Weird idea, met some of the people who had started doing those studies, book people, etc., and came back to Louisville with their blessing to keep Louisville weird, and put up a billboard with very little fanfare out of his own pocket. And gosh, the dogs are barking, man. And it just took off like wildfire because one of our beloved local bookstores had just closed. Holly Cook had been around for years, very large, etc. It just seemed to send a shiver through the community. And when John came back, the timing was obviously it sparked. So with that, we were lucky because we had this kind of campaign that people were aware of before there was even an organization. People would say, I'd like to be part of it. And he's like, I just put up a billboard, and so he decided to go ahead and move forward with that. And we've been moving along since. Our current budget is about $250,000 a year. I am the only full-time employee of LIBA. We have 2 part-time folks as well as 2 contractors, which I'll go into deeper depth because they are our neighborhood initiatives coordinators. We've had 900. We're right around 860 right now. We just seem to have been hovering there since the beginning of the pandemic, but have seen some boosts lately here as well. So it's we always like to gauge our number of members. We were on a path for huge growth for a long time and then kind of shifted and decided that we really wanted to focus more on membership retention than membership growth. And we still grew for a long time, but we feel like we've got a great retention rate and happy about that. I believe it's at about 92%. I would have to take a look. We don't count businesses who have closed, things like that. But we've been glad. No, it's right around 90. It is around 90%. So we do regular business member events. I'm sure all of you do as well. Generally once a month, although next year, we think we're going to take the summer off from those and focus on our buy local fairs, which are major events where thousands of locals attend, and we have 50 to 150 booths depending on the fair. We have the original buy local fair, and I'll talk some about South Points, and we're launching one for West Louisville as well this year. We also do a B2B expo. We always want to remember our B2B members as well, even though a lot of times when people think of us, they're thinking of those brands that they see when they're driving down the road, as opposed to the people behind those businesses who are like Kristen and Lauren, who are doing the marketing and the printing and all that good stuff. And then, of course, we do a holiday campaign, which we call the Holidays for Louisville, and celebrate Small Business Saturday. We have an annual fundraising auction then, and I'll talk about our Small Business Saturday celebrations because those are also neighborhood based, along with promoting our businesses citywide. We do an annual buy local guide, a printed directory. We had been doing that twice a year and are doing that annually now. I know a lot of people have moved away from paper completely, but we still feel like it's nice to have something to hand folks, and people. I use it a lot too. We flip through, get ideas, etc. So, and plus, of course, all the members are published on our website as well. We have various active committees. We have our advocacy committee. That meeting is later today. Lauren with the ILSR is going to be joining us for that to talk a little bit about them. We have education, which is, kind of public facing about educating the public about why buying local is important. So their table and events and all that sort of thing. We have membership engagements. Got Kristen on the call here. She's one of our new chairs this year too. So again, that membership retention, building that community, stronger together, all that. We also have events. Lauren is on that committee as well. So that's, another strong building block of building that community amongst our members, and also helping us with some of our public facing events as well. We also have the very sexy committee of capacity and infrastructure, which is basically myself and one other board member to kind of, keep our eyes on the overall structure and, what we need to be sure to ensure that we are living a long and healthy life, and that we'll be here 5 years from now. What do we need to succeed to move to the next step? And of course, diversity, equity, inclusion runs through all of our committees. We used to have a separate DEI committee, but felt it was a stronger model to just build that aspect out in each of our committees in a stronger way, so that each of our committees are reporting on and planning for their DEI efforts. We have that broken out as part of our annual retreat. We do an annual board retreat where we welcome our new board members, and we dive in again on our annual planning. We have an outside consultant come in, and we develop these handy dandy annual plans that we sometimes don't follow at all, but sometimes we do. We try to keep on track with those, and we've done a better job through the years of referring back to those plans and making those plans stick, and knowing that we're not going to necessarily accomplish it all, and maybe sometimes we need to shift gears. But it's a incredible tool that I think helps us a lot organizationally. So, like there was one other thing I was and then at one point we did do a 5-year strategic plan, which was wonderful, but it ended in 2021. So we were in the middle of a pandemic and just, it was not time to be planning 5 years. So 2020 was when we should have been starting on our 5-year annual plan. And now we're kind of, setting the table for, attacking that in 2024. But I've been very proud of our 5-year plan because it's nice to look back and see what we have accomplished. And then the things that are still, worthy goals, and then some things that just aren't as relevant anymore. So it's been good to have those tools. But today I was going to jump in on our neighborhood initiatives in West Louisville and in South Louisville. Any questions before I kind of chat about that? I'm going to share my screen just because I like to look at pictures and it's more fun than just seeing my talking head. Let me see, share screen. Got my PowerPoint. Here we go. Okay. So we had begun our neighborhood initiatives in a very small way in South Louisville. So I will preface this by saying, LIBA as an organization kind of started in the Highlands, an area of town that's very well known for our independent businesses, for our very unique neighborhood character, and for a long time was known as a Highlands organization, but had expanded and wanted to purposefully striving towards representing the entire city. And as such, we had, and also I'm from South Louisville, and I wanted to have more South Louisville members. So we had a member who had a recruitment event specifically for South Louisville members, and invited her neighbors. And it did kind of catch the eye of the city at the time of like, what are they up to in South Louisville? And can we work together? And, initially we really just kind of had our South Louisville programs that was run in-house, but it was often falling to the bottom of the list because you all know, being busy directors and busy business owners, how that works. But we had some things going, and actually went as far as hiring someone to work with us for South Louisville and for West Louisville, because by that point, we knew that West Louisville could benefit from more independent businesses, but we didn't have the expertise necessarily. And who's an expert on that anyway? Exactly. You do your best to have your best tools, but you don't always know where to start. So we were intentional about that and actually hired a contractor. Who's actually Charles Booker, who went on to run against Mitch McConnell in the most recent elections. But at the time, he was not a state representative. But he had, and so he came on board to do our South and West Louisville efforts at like 10 hours a week was the goal. I don't think he was often hitting that. But we found that, Charles was the balance. I have the South Louisville knowledge. Charles had the West Louisville knowledge. And so together we could, pull off these campaigns. When he moved on to run for state rep, we had the position open for a little while and eventually hired Johnetta Roberts, who you see on your left. Johnetta has been instrumental in many projects in West Louisville, specifically around real estate. She's a former employee of Community Ventures, which is a statewide nonprofit that had very similar, her projects were very much in line with what we wanted to accomplish. So Johnetta stepped into Charles's role, but again, we still felt like South Louisville was falling through the cracks because I was supposed to be in charge of that, and I had a lot of things going on. So eventually, and by working with the city to apply for funding, we now have two neighborhood initiative managers, and that's Rachel Rourke's on the right, that's Johnetta on the left. The irony is that Rachel is a state representative as well. We knew her through her work with Metro Council because we partner with Metro Council whenever we can. Obviously, the representatives of the various districts where we're active want to see us succeed. And the entire Metro Council we work with on, various, helping us promote some initiatives, et cetera. So we had already met Rachel through that. After she ran for state representative, it's not a full-time job. So we thought, well, this is a perfect fit. So I really feel like we have been hitting our stride with two very enmeshed in the community folks to help us with these initiatives. And we've done a lot of different things here, bus tours for prospective business owners, kind of summits with various parties to try to work together towards unified plans, et cetera. But we've kind of settled into, especially with the West, a little bit more of our programs have settled in a bit. And also because we've been able to leverage those programs to get other funding. So Johnetta has been with the team longer. We had just before the pandemic done something called the West Louisville Trailblazers. Actually, I want to skip ahead to that. And it was an in-person event. We invited 4 business owners in West Louisville to come and have a talk about, just their history in business, et cetera. This was through a partnership with Leadership Louisville, a local nonprofit who kind of came up with this idea of, knowing that LIBA didn't have the capacity to run a formal mentorship program. This was a way for us to bring either prospective business owners or current business owners in to meet people who have been successful in business, to also change the narrative around doing business in West Louisville. And I guess a little history there too. I'm remiss in saying, West Louisville is a historically underinvested area of town, redlining, predominantly Black. It has had many struggles, redlining at first and then urban renewal. It just, but we've seen a big change in investment around West Louisville, which has been very exciting. So our Urban League was very instrumental in bringing in the sports and learning complex. And there's been just I've heard from many people, this is a historic moment, the amount of investment going into West Louisville, which of course is wonderful, but we want to be sure that it's not an area that becomes gentrified. And we feel like the best tool against that is to be sure that the residents are the owners of the businesses who are profiting from this investment. So hence the Trailblazers was born. I put our most recent flyer here. Our next event is on August 22nd. We shifted gears during the pandemic to a video format that can live on in an online library forever, and that we promote heavily on social media. But we also pair with an in-person event, which we now have, an actual award that we give to the Trailblazer. We have the 15-minute video that we talk about their success. It's an interview with them. And you can find those on our website as well. If you go under keeplouisvilleweird.com and then events, there's West Louisville Trailblazers to see some of those videos. And we've been really pleased that we've had great attendance at these events, close to 100 folks. There's not currently an active business association in West Louisville, so it's been a wonderful place to get connected to other folks that doesn't necessarily have the same type of opportunities, and has sparked many conversations that have led to other things. And we were glad to be able to leverage, you'll see the city's logo on the bottom, their dollars, as well as Amped, who has been a partner in a lot of ways too. Their minority business incubator, who happens to also be our neighbor in our office, which is located in West Louisville, to approach folks like Park Community, which is a credit union who has the largest CDFI in the state. who supported these. Making videos is expensive, I'm sure y'all know. But we wanted that to be able to live on in the future. And this was a great way to combine the awesomeness of connecting in person with also this resource that people could access anytime or just view from their desktop. So that's one of our programs there. Our other program. So this is our first year, actually. No, last year was we had 1 or 2. And this is our first year of being like intentional of we're having 4. This is when they're going to be, etc. Our other program, another program is West on Wednesday, which, as you can see by the fork and spoon, is focused on the culinary scene. A common complaint is that there are just not many sit-down restaurants in West Louisville. Most of it is fast food, and you have to travel outside, and neighbor residents want to spend their money in West Louisville. And we also want to invite people from other areas of town to find out about great businesses in West Louisville. So we started this West on Wednesday actually in 2019. Again, the pandemic shut it down. But we were having some success with spotlighting a business once a month. We do it for a 6-month run and inviting the community. We would work with the restaurant. And in a way, it's a little bit of informal technical assistance. TA in the grant world, which is worth, I don't know. I don't know much about it, honestly. But we do have hopes to grow the program into more of a program that provides actual technical assistance to restaurants if they need it. So our goal is to have kind of a brief assessment for the restaurants as we go into the process. As it is, we're working together on menus and what are the promotions that are going to keep these customers coming back, etc. And then again, it's a community celebration where connections are made and people can get together for a nice meal. So we have had those in 2023, and our next one is on August the 9th. We are still hitting our stride there with those, but we are also happy to again have leveraged our city money to get outside sponsorship through Heaven Hill, who has a distillery in West Louisville and who is trying to do better as a neighborhood community stakeholder. They've done some good things, and they're again trying to know better and do better. So we're working with them as a sponsor of the West on Wednesday event. I think I'm getting close to time here, so I'm going to kind of whiz through a couple of these other things. We do also do our Small Business Saturday celebrations. So we host these in South Louisville and in West Louisville, and I'll talk about South Louisville in just a moment here. What I liked about our West Louisville event this year is that we partnered with the Millionaire Marketplace as well as Louisville Urban League. We had produced a Small Business Saturday market for a few years before the pandemic. It was never very large, but we were happy to have the celebration and, had some positive impacts. And we actually, Cynthia Brown was formerly at another small business resource provider, but is now at Louisville Urban League. So it was helpful to have her connections to have it at this big new sports and learning complex, which is just kind of a shiny and new. I guess it's not that new anymore, but it's a really impressive building in West Louisville, as well as Millionaire Marketplace, and Nashand, who started the Millionaire Marketplace, is also on our board. So let's see. I'm also just going to mention a couple things with South. This has been South Small Business Saturday branding. Rachel just came on board with us in January, so she's not been here for a Small Business Saturday yet, but she was part of it through her Metro Council role. We have a good partner with Colonial Gardens, and just briefly, South Louisville is a very multicultural area. A lot of English as a second language residents, and
Get that. Could you try again?
Siri is not understanding me. And again, a place where I guess our initial involvement with South Louisville too came when a former department store, Bacon's, had left the area. And South Louisville was trying to win a Kohl's to the area, and Kohl's passed. They were like, it's not, South Louisville's not our kind of area. And a lot of South Louisvillians took great offense to that, and kind of formed the Southwest Dream Team around being able to tell the positive stories, etc. But what we noticed, and me as a former South Louisville resident, it was like all of the goals were around attracting chains and national brands. And so we wanted to partner with Southwest Dream Team to say, yes, we understand why you want national brands, but we also want to have a strong independent business scene, because that's what's going to, have the unique character of your neighborhoods. I don't have to preach to the choir here. So that and our one of our members having the event, kind of all came together to have this. So our Small Business Saturday event in South Louisville is our longest running Small Business Saturday event. The press is always calling us about Small Business Saturday anyway. I know folks have mixed feelings about the promotion of this national brand, etc., but we wanted to capitalize on it. So it's something that we use to get the word out and to celebrate across the city, but specifically with in-person gatherings in South Louisville and in West Louisville. Also long running is our South Points Buy Local Fair. This is a picture, actually it's not of the South Points Buy Local Fair, I'm realizing, but it's very similar to this. Where we gather, we partnered with Iroquois Park, one of the kind of anchors, and produced all South Louisville vendors, promoted to South Louisville residents, etc., and have had good success with that as well. Just before the pandemic, had around 1,000 attendees, which was our highest yet. Planned one for during the pandemic, and then there was a spike, and we just couldn't do it. So we're excited though, because just 2 weeks ago, we had the South Points Buy Local Fair. Even though I had COVID and had to stay home, it was ironic since, COVID just keeps freaking messing with my freaking events. But anyway, so again, had about 1,000 folks, and I haven't even seen the pictures yet. So our photographer is sending those back. But, again, all South Louisville vendors and, the DJ and all the whole shebang. So, and we get support for that through a neighborhood development fund request to Metro Council, to our South Louisville Metro Council reps, as well as through sponsorship. St. Mary and Elizabeth Hospital, which is, South Louisville Hospital, was our silver sponsorship. So we love this combination of city government funds, of local sponsorship for people who fit the bill. It's rare that we will take a sponsorship from a national organization. We did it with Louisville Gas and Electric because there's just no other competitors in town for the electric. There's not going to be a local startup for electric. But in general, we've been able to have, local homegrown for our sponsors as well. But we also know that we're never going to be getting $10 million from necessarily local sponsors. So, so that combination of the smaller level sponsorships that our small organizations can afford, some of the bigger level sponsorship, and government funding, it's kind of that sweet spot of not relying on one too much or the other, but combining to make things happen. But I'm going to look here to see if there was anything else big that I wanted to cover on that before we open it up to questions, and also see if maybe Lauren and Kristen have anything to add. I'm happy to share our proposal for the city government, because that's what I've used a lot for this presentation as well. We do measure our initiatives. Oh, I didn't mention that we do also plan to have our West Louisville Buy Local Block Party for the very first time. We've wanted to do it since we started the South Points Buy Local Fair, but we didn't have the capacity, then COVID hit, and et cetera, but gonna make it happen this year. So we're excited about that. And to again have sponsorship. We've never had sponsorship for West Louisville. Janetta and I got together and did a very purposeful plan of like, who are the big, thanks Kristen for coming, I appreciate it. To, specifically ask like, who are these big players that have the money that could support us? And we were just honestly stunned by the dollars we were getting back. So, and I credit a lot of that to Jonetta's connections within the community that she had made, and the new understanding that some of the businesses have about, I mean, we are the city of Breonna Taylor. So it's time to put your money and your actions where your mouth is. And we were a tool for, furthering those goals. Let's see. So yeah, some of our measurements, obviously we're measuring our quantitative things like attendance, social media numbers, etc. The dollars we produce through sponsorship, and we're starting to try to get a handle on economic impact dollars. We, also measure our media and how we're changing the narrative around areas of town. Kind of this informal mentorship that's come about. It has built up our relationships with the cohorts. There have been a ton of new resources for businesses, especially in West Louisville, since the civil unrest in 2020. And we are humbled and proud that some of these cohorts have partnered with us and bought LIBA memberships for their graduates, so that they're getting plugged into a network once they've learned the business basics or expanded their business or whatever they were in the cohort for. So we're very pleased with that. And I think those are the big things I wanted to cover, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And let me just begin by asking if any of the folks from Louisville, since Jennifer encouraged you to chime in, if any of you want to add additional thoughts on the presentation.
And we actually lost Kristen. She had to run. But
yeah.
Lauren's here. She's actually our board president. So, yay, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. No, actually, I'm going to ask Jennifer for this transcript, because you just did this whole, you just did this whole presentation flawlessly. You maybe even shared some things that I was unfamiliar with, potentially. So
It's hard to cover everything in a board meeting when you're reporting on everything, So.
yes, yeah, we use our board meetings to get down to the nitty gritty. But no, I don't necessarily have anything else to add. I mean, I think Jen did a really good job on honing in on our West and Louisville initiatives. But I'm happy to help answer any questions if I can. But Jen she holds all the LIBA knowledge, as you could hear from her presentation.
Great. Well, I'm going to just throw one question on the floor and hope that others follow with their questions. So you grew the network to 800 plus members over a decade. What worked in growing the membership to that level?
Retention is a big one. When I was hired, LIBA had hired a part-time director initially way back when, before I came on board, who was a great events person, but wasn't really a fundraiser per se. And so they were like, next time we hire, we're not hiring a director, we're just hiring somebody to do outreach and recruit members. So that's actually what I was initially hired for. I had other jobs that I was doing. I was a contractor. And so that was a big part of it. That was my only job for LIBA, was to ask people to join.
And what worked when you did that?
I think it was partially tailoring the message. It was partially the awesome benefit that John Timmons gave us of already having a campaign that people had heard of Keep Louisville Weird. And people didn't know what that meant and what that, so they research and they're like, and then the light bulb goes off, that sort of thing. So so that was helpful. And persistence. I think out of all of my memberships asked over all of my years too, I've only had one person say, hell yeah, and then just join right there, like it just takes a little while. a lot of people intend to join, but it is never like the hottest thing for them to do on that day. As a small business owner, generally small business, a lot of times, I mean, we do have some bigger businesses involved too, but I would say, I mean, 80 to 90%, we've got that figure somewhere, are 10 and fewer employees. So, we had a rule of 7 where we had 7 contacts. If we never heard back, then that 7th email was a blessing release of, hey, we're not going to chase you anymore. We don't want to become a pest, but let us know if you're interested. And that was the one that did the trick a lot of times, because people just thought I'd just keep asking, you know.
Right. So, I mean, presumably retention and the gathering of members was identifying services, value added that you were providing them. And what were the value adds that were most compelling?
It's changed over the years. I think too that people felt like LIBA was an organization that they really related to. You know, if they were going to network, then the main chamber, Greater Louisville Inc. is the name of our main chamber, and they've got a lot of their great initiatives and all that stuff. And we do work together when we can with GLI, but it's just not really made for small business, no matter what the different programs. And I know that's a common theme too among other IBAs. So they felt like LIBA was meant for them. And that we not only are there just as a business organization, a chamber type of thing, we are educating the public about why they should shop at their business. And we have specific initiatives that add to their bottom line. We want to generate more sales for them and also give them opportunities for growth, for learning, for connecting to other businesses, to make deals, to, you know, have unique partnerships, etc. So I think mainly in the beginning, my sales point was connection to other businesses. And also we were cheap. I mean, we're still at only 125 a year for the standard membership. And at the time it was 100.
And we just raised that like last year or 2 years ago, like very, very recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah.
But
Or was
yeah,
it pre-pandemic? Yeah,
I think so.
but it was,
I don't know. It feels recent though.
it's still somewhat new. So to be at $100 for that long, even 125 is
It's true.
very
I looked up
affordable.
inflation, and we probably should have jumped to like 140 because, you know, like that was the, you know, how much it had gone up in value from the time we started asking 100 up to then. So we wanted to make it affordable, and, you know, we don't charge for our programs. Whereas most chambers, you're paying at least $20, if not $50 for a lunch, etc. And then once we had the buy local guide, that was a big selling point. I mean, we would have a big boost in membership numbers when that deadline was coming up, because it was a great way for me to be like, you need to join if you want to get in this, like, we're going to print. So print deadlines are another thing. Like, the internet does not have print deadlines. So print has a place in the whole workings of everything, you know?
Does the buy local guide have a lot of coupons in it, discounts, or is it more just information?
You know, it has in the past, and it still does. I think one issue we did without coupons, because, you know, print prices have changed so much after the pandemic. So I think that first one back, we did not do coupons, but we have in the back our coupon pages that people can tear them out. This is a copy of the buy local guide. We've just changed the color on the cover, although we're due for a new design now. We'll be getting that together this year. And it's, you know, if you have a membership, you get a free listing. But then we make the money because we sell, you know, the ads. So I know y'all are all familiar with that, especially Janine. She's got all the media going on.
Great. So other questions from folks here: Janine, Marie, Paula, Leslie. Yeah, Marie, you need to unmute yourself.
having my background is basically working with small businesses of all different types, not much retail really to speak of, but yet working with the public to increase and I'm seriously in the process of getting a handle on how to create this here in at least the Atlanta metro area. Which doesn't make it too much different than Louisville. But I also am very familiar with Austin. I happened to experience the crazy parade when I lived there for a short time. But we're a little bit different, more traditional here, but yet not so. We're international. That is a big thing that I would see promoting, is the international presence in the Atlanta metro area. But we're also fighting against franchises and certainly corporate and government here. So my question really is about that. Has anyone ever thought about how do we present or something successful that you actually could see that contrast working, where we contrast the independent business with the franchise? Because when I drive down any given street other than Main Street, which is really more like a tourist attraction, any one of the cities certainly in Kennesaw where I live, and Ackworth where my daughter lives, they have a Main Street. The Main Street is really just, it's just a place, go have a cup of coffee, maybe a little local restaurant, but it is local businesses, but it's just a small strip.
I think
And growing up in
the
New
biggest
York,
way there.
I'm sorry?
I think the economic studies are a big way there. You can kind of cite the average, but we did a local study partnering through the American Booksellers Association of you spend $100 at a chain, only 14 stays local. If you spend $100 at a local, 54, at least that's Louisville numbers. And so I think that's powerful. And I also think that people generally, those are the two things that we emphasize anyway, is that economic impact, the dollars, and then the authenticity of your neighborhood, or the flavor of your neighborhood. Which kind of neighborhood do you want to live in?
Yeah, I'm aware of that way back when my day in Austin, when I worked with the Green Movement there, where there was already those studies were coming out. So I'm aware of that. How do we make the people aware when they're dialing in Amazon, or when they're going down the street and just stopping in at one of the local restaurants, which I live right outside one of the main streets going through Kennesaw here, which we've got infamous Stone Mountain, and we've also got Kennesaw Mountain down the road here. But
that's a $100 billion question, and I guess that's why.
So because of my background, it's not to say that I always tell people, like, I've been around the block for a lot of years, and what I want to do with anyone I work with is shorten the learning curve for them. And that's why I've been showing up at these meetings, because I want to shorten the learning curve for myself. So I'm learning from people who have been around and have established these. So for me, I really feel that for we need to have more independent businesses, because I do believe that there is a correlation, and I'm still working on the research on that, a correlation with the reduction of the size of the middle class in America, and the coming up of all of the franchises and the mega corporations, of which they buy up everything. And surprise, surprise to me, a lot of these franchises are being bought by venture capitalists, and even co-ops are being owned by venture capitalists. So I'm looking for answers to present, and I am a public speaker too, but it's being out there in public and challenging, because I want to solidify the independent businesses that exist as I expand them, and I've got a greater motive in mind because I'm 82. And I've been certainly around business for at least 50 years, always working with small businesses. I'm one of them, truly. I quit school and went to work in New York City when I was 16 years old because I lost my father at 13 and somebody had to help my mom. She was a factory worker. And so I'm truly worked my way up. Been a single mom, had 6 children, and figured out a way. And part of it is survival. I want to find out what is the problem. Why do so many, 50% of those businesses will be gone in 5 years, the independent businesses. Franchises will be too, by the way. There's no separation between a small franchise and the failure of independent businesses. And what that says is that, you know, how do we get a strong, there's a lot of you, Jen, you've really done a great job in expanding this over the years, where there are a lot of independent business organizations that are actually functioning and really are doing a good job of creating a stable corporation for their business. But starting out, I want to jump into the trenches, which is what only thing I know what to do. And I'm hoping that I can get guidance from the people who've been there and what worked, what didn't work. And I've just made a note here, get out and talk to the small businesses. I want to know is before I put this organization in effect here, what can I do to help stabilize you, to bring you more business? What is it exactly? And then tailor everything else to that.
Well, let's hear Jen's answer to that. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so can you state the question again and like, oh,
well, the big question is, if you were to start out tomorrow, after all the years experience you have, all right,
okay.
what would you say is the most effective thing so that when a potential member comes and they say, well, why you? I can go to Chambers, got nice meetings, and yeah, they even offer you coffee. Like, you know, what am I going to get from you? What's going to give me the biggest return on my investment that I should select you instead of some other business organization?
Sure.
What would you tell them?
The public education that we do around why buying local is important. And
yeah, okay,
I mean,
go
if we
go
want
with
the
that.
one thing, yes, that's what differentiates us. That's why we're different from the other chambers. And that's why we do everything we do.
How does that work in some specific way? You public education, is it you I don't know, go to the
There
Rotary?
are events, you know, every buy local fair that we have, you know, they're called buy local fairs. We talk about why buying local is important. Every media appearance that we make, we all tie it back to the buy local message. Every networking event that we have, it's between businesses that are all independent. So we're just always reinforcing that buy local message, you know, on a grassroots budget. But yes, so encouraging people to make that shift, the public to make the shift, the businesses to join.
So messaging is really critical. Paula, you had a question.
I did, but I'll just throw something out there. I'm actually a former Chamber of Commerce executive. So I would totally agree that the message of buy local is really the differentiator, because your Chamber of Commerce, like we just had a Dunkin' Donuts move into town, and you know, they're killing our local coffee shop, right? So who's advocating for the local coffee shop? Well, the chamber, they're members of both, right? They're both members of the chamber. So what's the difference there? And I think that's huge. So really just speaking to that message. So I'm currently a volunteer board member with Dane Buy Local in the Madison, Wisconsin area. And I would love to just hear more about, you know, what does your board do? What kind of things do you have your board work on? Or what's that dynamic like?
Sure. And I know Lauren can speak to that a lot as well. And it has changed a lot over the years. I would say initially our board was, well, they called it Groundhog Day. They said they had the same meeting all the time. But that was when we were just starting out. I know that Dane is in a much different position than that. But getting outside facilitation was a huge boon for us for our retreats. We have, kind of changed our formatting some over the years, but we feel fairly settled into those buckets that I mentioned earlier, the committees. You might have been coming off and coming back on, I'm not sure, but we've been pretty steady with those. We've not really felt like we need another one or we need to get rid of one. The last biggest change being the DEI, was not a separate committee. It was it's everybody's job. It always has been. But so we have report outs from the board at every meeting. The board meetings are run by my staff report and questions about that, and then reports from the board about what they're up to with their committee, if they have one. Most of them have committees. And we try to compare that. We don't do it at every board meeting, that's for sure, but we're trying to check in against our plan for the beginning of the year, where we wanted to be, where we are now.
And do you find
Lauren,
that
what do
your
Okay.
board members, like, do they take leadership roles in communities? Do they help with membership retention efforts, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. And, I will say that, you always have a couple of bummer board members that you're just like, where are they? Well, I thought they were going to be so great, and then they're not. And that was a higher percentage in the early days. And it was a matter of, like taking that stand of, if you can't do the work, then we would say it nicely, but let's not waste each other's time. Like, why we want to have somebody who's in here that can be a productive board member. And I think people understand that too, that we want that slot to be filled by somebody who has the time. And we know that things ebb and flow too, I mean, some years are harder than other years. And some years you're expanding your business or you're whatever, like if you don't have time that year, it's fine. You can come back. But we have encouraged board members to shorten their terms, things like that, so that we can elect someone who can be more productive in that role. And again, things happen. So not everybody's as productive as they want to be. And it's also, staff tries to always remember that, the board, they are volunteers and they also have their own businesses to run, et cetera. So we know those things get in the way of accomplishing everything that they want to accomplish as board members. But holding each other accountable too is important. There are things that I asked Lauren to do because I'm like, that needs to come from you, or it needs to come from a committee chair or whatever. It doesn't need to come from staff, that sort of thing.
So we're almost at the end of time, but I wanted to ask Janine if you had anything you wanted to share about what's going on with you. Make sure your voice was in the room.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to ask Jennifer, if you could, just from what you know about other IBAs around the country, if you could wave a magic wand, disregarding your current capacity, what would be like another program or angle or offering that you think would be really effective and beneficial to your community?
I will tell you one. It might not be the most important thing, but the one that's just driven me the most nuts. I cannot get a local website, a website that is a conglomerate of my members, and it automatically talks to my members' websites and it just brings it all together, like a local Amazon. We have had various efforts around that. I know that different communities have different things where it's like a window onto their website, and some things that also work that are also beneficial. But I just always really wanted to see that, and I just don't know why it can't happen.
Like a better directory or e-commerce? Is that what you're talking about?
E-commerce.
Okay.
E-commerce. So we went through 2 different iterations of e-commerce. And the second one, the first one we went in and I did not have the expertise. It was just, honestly, looking back, very naive and silly of me to think that we could pull that off. But whatever, you live, you learn, you got to try. And the next one, though, I felt a lot better about because we partnered with Community Ventures, he was a programmer, he had the experience in the, marketplaces, et cetera, and, had shopped around and looked at various ones, and one day they'll make that happen. But
Well,
I
I'm going to
don't know.
email you.
I just want it to be, what's that?
I'm going to email you because I want to pick your
Okay.
brain a little bit more about that because we're just thinking of going in that direction.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think too, if I do it again, I would want to have I would need funding for another position. Really. I think I need somebody that's totally dedicated to that. And I need to check back with Local First Arizona because I know that they have one that had been running. I don't know if it's still, but I was surprised their sales were not as much as I thought they would be for an established, website. I'm like, it's hard for them too, So I don't know. I guess that's the one thing that I would love to be like, yeah, Amazon's convenient, but can you wait like one more day and just get it local? I think a lot of people would be willing to, and I know too, I'm not saying I never order from Amazon. It does happen, I don't advertise it, but some things are just too specialized and too whatever, but most things, and because I'm the director of an IBA, obviously I'm very willing to take the extra time to find out, but I would just love to have that at people's fingertips,
Great. So just 60 more seconds. First of all, thank you, Jennifer, for sharing this hour of great information with us. Really appreciate it. Round of applause.